by the National Academy of Sports Medicine.
Become a certified personal trainer with the National Academy of Sports Medicine. If you don't land a job as a personal trainer within 60 days, they'll give you your money back, guaranteed. Get a free trial of the online program at myusatrainer.com/Mike. Restrictions apply. See myusatrainer.com/Mike for the details.
Okay, Mike and Mike again. ESPY's winning word is coming up. Be listening. Your chance to win a fabulous trip to the ESPYs. Rob Manfred coming up shortly as well. Commissioner of Baseball was there in Baltimore last night making the decision to postpone the game, which, as we opened by saying, in the scheme of things, was the least significant thing that happened in Baltimore yesterday. On Saturday night in Las Vegas, obviously a huge fight. 1 years in the making, years in the waiting, and now finally here with Floyd Mayweather against Manny Pacquiao. And there, as is the case in any sporting event of this magnitude, there were a million sidebars.
Right.
And you spend all this time talking about them leading up to the fight. But then at the end of the day, the two guys are going to get into the ring, and the reason that we were all interested in the first place, one way or another, will finally take place. So we had Teddy Atlas on yesterday from Vegas, and he is about as good an analyst in his sport as anybody is in theirs. And so we asked him, when you get past everything else, what do we expect to see in the fight? Who has the advantage in the fight? Here was Teddy.
He's just not as big.
Okay, this is talking about how Mayweather has the advantage now versus 5 years ago, and he's talking about the condition then, the size then of Manny Pacquiao.
He's just not as big. And as I said, he's not as dangerous either. Matter of fact, Mayweather, if you look at the two of them, Mayweather looks a lot bigger. And Mayweather is not a big welterweight. You know, he's really not a natural welterweight. He came up from junior lightweight when he made his progression up from the pro ranks, but he definitely is the bigger guy. So there's a big difference from that standpoint for me. Now Mayweather is the puncher, and that would never have been in the in the thoughts of this fight, in the breakdown of this fight before. But if there's a knockout in this fight, for me, it's going to be Mayweather.
So that is a transformation from what the circumstance may have been a few years ago, Teddy Atlas says.
Yeah.
That you're talking about now, if you're looking at one guy who seems to be the bigger, stronger man, it is Mayweather, and that would not previously have been the case.
No, but Pacquiao is the one who throws more punches than Mayweather, though, according to CompuBox, Mayweather lands the most. 38 fights tracked. Mayweather landing 43% of his punches while absorbing just 19% of his opponents, and there's going to be a lot coming from Pacquiao. He throws a ton of punches. A lot of people think this is going to go the distance. We talk about Pacquiao's conditioning, well, both obviously, but Pacquiao and his quick feet and his conditioning and the amount of punches that he throws. And Mayweather, playing a little more defense, but, does connect a little more accurately with his punches. I think it's setting up. You hope anyway. Listen, we always hope, especially when you're going to plop down some money for a fight, but there's this kind of buildup. Whenever you have great buildup for something, you always think, can the actual event live up to the buildup? And God knows there's been a 5-year buildup for this thing. It almost seems like it's impossible that you could live up to that type of a buildup, but you hope it can.
You figure that for Pacquiao, and you look at the two of them as far as the fighters are concerned, and their fighting legacies, Pacquiao, it strikes me, has very little to lose and everything in the world to gain.
Agreed.
Unless if he's totally humiliated, if he's dominated, if he gets knocked out in the second round or something like that, then I suppose that's bad for him. If he fights a respectable fight and loses, he's the underdog. He makes a fortune of money.
Yes, he does.
I think he has almost nothing to lose. And obviously, if he wins, he has everything in the world to gain as far as his legacy. For Floyd Mayweather, it's the reverse.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe not fully the reverse. He has a lot to lose and a lot to gain.
Yeah.
As Jim Lampley said to us earlier or last week, he's got his eyes on 50-0.
Yes, he does.
Which could be a huge fight based upon breaking Marciano's record.
And he's a free agent, by the way, from networks. He timed that up pretty well, so there could be, actually, if you go forward a couple of fights, there could be an actual bidding by networks to show fight number 50.
It is not inconceivable that if things break his way, he could wind up making more money for his 50-0 fight than he makes for this fight. Of course, he has to win this fight for that to be a factor, and that's where he has the enormous downside should he lose. If he does win, I asked Teddy this, because this to me is a good question. I look forward to asking Brian Kenny about this as well later. If he wins this fight, 48-0, the fighter of his era, but what does it do for him historically? What does Floyd Mayweather become in the annals of boxing if he wins this fight? Here was Teddy.
He's going to be the richest fighter of all time. He's going to be a fighter that got probably more prominence, more attention, more marquee out of his career than probably any other fighter. He was around at the right time. The Marciano record doesn't mean anything to me because that was a heavyweight. Marciano's still the only heavyweight champion that ever retired undefeated. That's not changing. For me, you go back to the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. You go back to the golden era of boxing. You had fighters back there like Henry Armstrong that had 200 fights. You had fighters like Sugar Ray Robinson had 200 fights. You had fighters like Harry Greb had 300 fights. Archie Moore, 135 knockouts, not fights, knockouts. They were fighting every week. They fought the greatest fighters ever. They didn't dodge. They didn't navigate around guys. They fought every week, every month against the greatest fighters of all time. He doesn't fit into that list. I'm sorry. He's terrific. He's a terrific boxer. He's a terrific manager. He's a terrific navigator. He's a terrific promoter. But he doesn't fit in with those great, great, great fighters.
That's Teddy Atlas talking there.
That really raised our eyebrows to immediately think, wow, that's an interesting point. But then the more we kind of thought about it, the more we thought, well, is that fair as well? Because, going back so long and how the fight game was then and the number of fights that were going on then. So basically, if you think about it, according to Atlas, nobody in today's game or in the last 2 decades could reach the greatness of those early fighters because of volume of fights. And I think the more you think about it is that right?
Well, the first immediate analogy that jumped to my mind was Cy Young. I don't know that Cy Young is considered the greatest pitcher of all time. No one's ever going to approach his wins record. No one's going to get close. He won over 500 games. No one's going to get even close to that. But most people won't. I don't know how many pitchers ever again will ever start 500 games. It'll probably never happen again. So the point is, you've got a record that cannot be broken based upon the fact that the game has changed so much. No one you'll never be that way anymore.
That is exactly right.
Who are some of the fighters you just want numbers? Muhammad Ali fought 61 times. Joe Louis fought 69 times. Rocky Marciano 49-0. Floyd Mayweather 47-0. Sugar Ray Robinson fought.
He fought just under 200 times.
198 times.
Right, just under 200 times.
So those are to my knowledge, and I don't consider myself in any circumstances, a great student of the history of boxing.
Historian
I follow
of boxing,
it. I enjoy it, but I'm not the person you would come to ask this question. But I remember talking to Charlie Steiner about this, and Charlie Steiner said, when it comes to picking the greatest fighter, pound for pound of all time, it's Sugar Ray Robinson and then who? Ray Robinson, and then who? Now, does Floyd go into that discussion? I really don't know. For what it's worth, there are some notables that have picked Pacquiao to win the fight. They include Oscar De La Hoya, George Foreman, Roy Jones Jr., and Mike Tyson. We'll see. The overwhelming majority of people seem to be picking Floyd Mayweather to win this fight, and we'll see how it goes. Finally, these two are getting in the ring.
Yeah, I think one of the things to look at as well, the numbers you gave of one of the things Teddy Atlas brought up says these guys fought every month. They fought all the time. And you go to Sugar Ray Robinson, and we gave you his number of fights. He fought over 7.5 times a year. Rocky Marciano fought about 5.5 times a year. And then it goes down from there, the others on the list. Joe Louis, 3.8 times a year. Muhammad Ali fought 2.8 times per year, and Floyd Mayweather 2.5 times per year. So that's just gone now, and it's not really going to go back the other way at all. So, we have Brian Kenny on a little later. I love asking boxing people that question. I think Atlas brought it up where initially we were like, wow. And then the more we thought about it, we thought, well, is that a fair and apt comparison?
So those are the storylines about this fight inside the ring, but it is impossible to ignore the outside the ring storylines with this one, particularly with Mayweather. Mike is presented by Progressive Insurance. You can test drive Snapshot, see how much you could save before switching to Progressive. Visit progressive.com/snapshot. Dan Le Batard brought up a really interesting point on the Floyd Mayweather part of this story, the outside the ring part of the story on his show yesterday. Very curious to hear your opinion on it. You'll hear what Dan had to say right after this word from AutoZone.